Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Mark Davenport. Thanks for being on the show, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Mark and his partner, Phoebe, sold their single-family house 5 years ago and have been on a real estate investment journey since, moving from duplexes and 60 units to most recently a 12-story tower block. It's been a fascinating journey so far, he says. So, Mark, thank you for being on the show. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your journey and, some things we were talking about before the show and just like how you've been aggressive to scale and being willing to take risk and, being willingness to take that next step. I think it's just so crucial that we hear those things when we're getting started in this business and we understand we can't do it. It's difficult. It is not easy to be willing to take the risk and to take the next step. I'm looking forward to hearing how you have done that. But give us a little more about who you are, what you're doing in real estate. And then, I want you to help us and the listener to be, willing to take that next step as well.
Cool. Yeah. So my partner, Phoebe, and I'll start with me. I guess I'm British. I was born and raised in England, but moved to the US to get married. Phoebe and I are married. And we kind of found our way to real estate. I was a professional musician for in my earlier years. And,
what'd you play?
Drums mainly, but I found my way to bass and guitar eventually. So the drums are still set up over here. I still love to play, but professionally, it's not. I found other ways to kind of get what I wanted. So we did the thing of like bought a single family house and renovated it, and then went through some kind of life changes after living overseas for a while. And we were looking at the single family home that we owned, and it was a nice house at that point. We'd renovated it. And we were like, we could work the next 30 years to kind of pay a mortgage. But it wasn't something that really appealed to us. So we decided to try a different thing. We sold it and invested in a duplex. There was a foreclosure and renovated it, placed a tenant upstairs, lived downstairs, and we kind of began hustling, I think, in terms of real estate.
Nice. Okay. What was it about that drew you to real estate though? You're a professional musician. It's not easy to gain that status. I don't think that took a lot of work and practice. Right. And most of the listeners probably don't know that I'm a drummer as well, but never professional.
You're a drummer?
Yeah. I love playing and have played for a long time, but at church and with different little groups and stuff, but never at a professional level. So, but that's so interesting.
I love it.
Something the listeners probably did not know. But Mark, tell me a little about what was it about real estate? I mean, why, transition to real estate, from being a professional musician and what do you see, what's your, I guess, vision for that, in the future?
Yeah. Well, as a musician, I was working and earning money earning an hourly rate, like either playing in bands or teaching. Most of what I did was teaching. And yeah, I was doing fine. It was doing okay. But Phoebe and I, we started to have kids and, it was like, this isn't quite what I want. Wanted passive income. We had renovated. We were in the process of renovating our single family house. And I loved it, like installing oak floors. And we did some remodeling and taking out, a supporting wall in order to rearrange the space. And I just loved it. It was so much fun. So it wasn't really that I decided to get into real estate. It was like, I enjoy doing projects. And, if we sell our single family house, we can get a duplex and the upstairs rent pays the mortgage. We live rent free. Oh, that's cool. And I love to renovate. So I guess we'll just do it that way. And how it's worked for us always is it only becomes clear what we've done after we've done it. Like we never, it's not like, yes, Whitney, I have a master plan. Here is my 4 steps. Like after the fact, it's like, there was some strategy there. And yeah, there were some really significant things we did and there was a plan, but in the moment, it's like kind of organic, So it just kind of developed that way. And then, as we did more deals and got bigger properties, it's like, okay, I'm loving this process more. It's not just the renovation I love. I enjoy working with tenants. I like the underwriting. It's interesting networking, meeting people. And so I just discovered, hey, there's other parts of this that I really love too. And now I guess because I've discovered all these different things, I'm comfortable saying I love real estate. But at the beginning, it was just, I like swinging a hammer and I want to live rent free. So that was what it was.
I think it's pretty well said. And you're talking about, there wasn't this like amazing 4-step plan or whatever, that just pushed you in that direction. Because I think a lot of people, and I think we all are there at some points. Like if you expect to have this amazing plan, and if you're never willing to take the next step, even though you don't have this amazing plan in place, like you're never going to get there. Right. You're never going to get to that point where it's like, okay, like you said, I mean, here's the amazing plan. Let's get started. Well, no. You do have to have some faith in yourself and just your ability to keep pushing forward. You do have to have a plan of some kind, but it's never going to be this amazing thing that you're probably dreaming of in your head, Right. Mark, can you speak to just like aggressively scaling, and being willing to take risk, and what that looked like for you?
Yeah. So we were living in Brooklyn, New York at the time, and we had developed a duplex and a fourplex in New Hampshire. And then we relocated to Brooklyn, New York, and the properties were cash flowing. We'd renovated them pretty much top to bottom. Tenants were great. It was a really good, in many ways, a really great situation. And then I read a book about Elon Musk, and I had this epiphany, and I was so impressed with just one part of him. There's probably a lot to be said about many parts of him, but I was impressed with one part of it, which was like he wasn't nostalgic about the companies he'd started. He was always looking for the next thing and happy to surrender his kind of current position or his current company back in the early days in order to get something new. And I was just like, oh man, these properties we have, they're doing so well, but you know what? They're now worth so much more than what we purchased them for. And all that equity is sitting in the house doing something because the property's cash flowing. But man, if we could reinvest that equity and have the same success that we had with those initial properties at the next level, man, we'd be scaling. So we just decided, we'll put one of them on the market. We have nothing to lose. It's already cash flowing, and we'll see if we can get out what we want. And then, of course, it sold. Then the other one sold as well. And then we, bought 2 6 units and a 3 unit. So we went from 6 to, I don't know, what is that, 15. And in the course of like 6 months, 8 months. So the key for being aggressive for me was appreciating the past, enjoying it, seeing it for a good, if you've developed a situation, you are now in a better situation, but then also seeing, well, if I cash this in, I can make plays from here on out and I can kind of go to the next level. So that's kind of what we did that with that particular thing. Then we did it again with those 15 units in New Hampshire. We did another property in the process. But anyway, we had this portfolio in New Hampshire. And when we moved to Kansas City, which is where we are now, it was like, well, we have this New Hampshire portfolio and it's doing great again because it's all cash flowing, no problem. But again, like if you take the equity that's in it and sell it and you're able to realize that and get that money out and then reinvest at the same level as you did before, and then you jump. And so we did it. We bought a 12-story tower block and just acquired another 6-story one. So it's now 109 units. But really, it's just the idea of, you do one thing, you do what you have on your heart to do, I guess, or whatever. And then once you've done that, it's like, cool, that was great. All right, what's next? Nice.
Now you're at 109 units. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations. Just being willing to take that step. Most people aren't, or they just never will take that step. And I would just encourage the listener right now just to listen to Mark's story, and just realizing, wait a minute, there's a big opportunity here. And man, you took that step. What about just getting your wife or Phoebe on board as well? Or was she just gung ho about this decision and moving into real estate and taking these risks as well?
So I don't get her on board with anything. I mean, that's just not the dynamic of our relationship at all. In fact, I think probably it'd be better for her to be interviewed and then be asked, how did you get Mark on board? That's probably like the better way for that to go. But from day one, it was like a joint thing. We make decisions together. She shapes me, I shape her. Initially, it was more kind of me, like, because there was so much renovation initially with the duplex and the fourplex and even the 6, it was more kind of me hands-on doing that. So much of our growth was tied to the physical improvement of the property, and how we decided to do that was leverage my time to do it. But now that things have grown, she does so many different things. Like so no, I didn't get her on board, fella. It wasn't, it didn't go down that way.
Well, tell me about the purchasing of this 12-story, block. Tell me a little about that deal and how you moved in. I mean, how do you purchase that? Coming from smaller properties, to getting into that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a whole story there. I mean, it was February this year, February this year, and we'd sold our New Hampshire stuff, and we used a 1031 exchange to do that to defer the capital gains. So the resources are there, and we're like, okay, what can we do? And saw this building on the MLS on Realtor.com, and I was like, wow, how is it even possible that you can kind of get a project like this? And so it's in a town a couple of hours away from where we are. So we drove in, saw the property. We're like, this is exactly what we want. This exactly represents scale, opportunity to renovate, to improve management. It's in a kind of not a small town, but a town with a population of about 40,000. So we're very familiar with working in those types of towns. That's where we worked in New Hampshire. And it was just a wild ride. It continues to be a wild ride, really, because I reached out to all the banks in the area to see if they'll, finance the deal. Of course, COVID is kicking off at this point also. A couple of the banks were up for it, and one bank in particular was really keen. So we ended up working with them to underwrite it. The seller was an interesting character. There's lots of stories in the property as to why it's in this position. And we closed the deal. We got it done. And it was a wild ride, though. It really was a crazy journey.
What were a couple of things that you learned through that process? I mean, whether it was working with the bank or working with the seller or just closing a project of that size.
Yeah. So for me, most of the stuff I learned, most of the significant things they're all internal things. It's all me learning to not let my fear motivate my actions, or learning not to be anxious about a situation. So the biggest thing for me was like walking into a bank or talking with a commercial lender and just being confident and allowing and presenting myself to them and seeing that as a legitimate thing, because it's all internal for me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love to scale, is because I'm also improving myself, because I am kind of afraid now of a 200 unit building, or maybe I'm not, but that's only because I've done so many of them that I've learned to handle my fears in terms of properties. But it's all internal. It's the anxiety. It's like, oh, what if this happens? What if all the tenants leave? What if I can't underwrite it? What if, there's just so many, the mind can be like this fear factory. And it's like, how do you get a grip on that and, choose to live a different way? So for me, it's all self-management. I guess there's probably some other things as well, but like the bigger things are all internal.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that. Like the bigger things are internal. And I've said this numerous times on the show that, people think that I or our team have some big like magical gift or extreme knowledge from the beginning about whatever, about commercial real estate or multifamily. And I just think more than anything, it's just the willingness to keep going, keep learning, keep pushing forward. I think anyone listening can do what we've done, what you've done. But the hardest part is that mental part, like you're talking about from the very beginning, and learning. I love how you said you learned how not to let your fear motivate your actions. So important that you can learn to think clearly in a time where most people are fearful. Right. It's such a good skill. So how did you finance that, and why was that lender so interested in this project?
So I had the idea that we would approach local lenders because it's a local situation. There are obviously banks that are much bigger, have a even a footprint across the whole US. But we were like, this is a property that has been managed a certain way. It needs optimization. It needs renovation. It needs lots of the vacancies filled. Like the local banks have a stake in this. Like, surely there are some local banks who have a vision. to see this building and the downtown, actually, because this is the biggest building in the city, like thrive again. And so that was kind of what it was. It was a bank that the lady who I met with, and we still work with because they're financing other projects we have. I think there was a meeting of vision, I guess, and like the numbers worked. Like we came in with our down payment and everything. Like all that stuff is still, you have to kind of tick your boxes. But at the end of the day, I think they were willing to go with us because of the vision, and they understand. That to me is incredibly profound because we're just driving into this city. We don't know anyone. Never been there before, but we have a history of developing some real estate, yes, smaller projects, and they've taken a risk with us by doing that. But my guess is, I mean, you'd have to talk to her, but my guess is that they saw the vision and ultimately wanted that for their town.
Nice. I just think it's incredible. Just talking about you painted a vision for them, and they could see that vision, wanted it for their town. I think it's incredible. Mark, what's been the hardest part of this journey to, commercial real estate, and purchasing something like this, whether it was something in the beginning or something in that deal specifically, what's been the hardest part for you and Phoebe?
So that particular deal was super. We didn't contract until we'd done all of our due diligence. We'd inspected the building, we'd gotten a loan commitment, so we had no agreement with the seller. We'd done everything, which was risky. Like typically, I mean, the contract, and then you do your inspections and everything. You start investing once you have an agreement to buy it. We did all of that first, so that was something of a challenge. But again, the real challenge was the fear, because I was afraid. I was like, what if I lose thousands of dollars because this deal doesn't close? So really, actually, even underneath that, it's a mind game. Nice. Well, is there anything that now that you know what you know, you would have done different on that deal? I would have enjoyed the process more, probably. I would have been a little less difficult to live with, or I would have been a better friend to other people perhaps during the process if I'm not as stressed and not as overwhelmed about what's going on. I think that's the thing for me. My brain is now a little different because of what I've gone through. Yeah. And how do you prepare for a potential downturn? Wow, there's a question. So we do pretty much almost everything we do is in affordable housing. Like the rents in this building that we're working, I mean, it's like $500 bills paid. Like when a downturn happens, our buildings get fuller, because my understanding of the downturn is when things get tough, it's the people who have extended themselves a lot, with big mortgages for houses they can't afford, or paying huge amounts for rent that they can't afford. My understanding is when that happens, they have to downsize, they have to scale back. So we've never had a problem filling any of our apartments. We've been doing this since, a number of years. This is our first kind of downturn though, and it's exploded. So I'm not really anticipating a problem, but hey, we might have a big problem. We'll see. What do you predict to happen over the next 6 to 12 months in the real estate market? Oof, I don't know, man. That is a great question. I don't know. In the market as a whole, I think it's obviously turbulent. We kind of have our fingers on the pulse of New York City a bit because we used to live there. So we're kind of looking at that situation and seeing how, property values are dropping. And I think I heard a crazy stat on like the Grant Cardone show or whatever, and he was like, there's 20,000 vacancies in New York right now in apartments. I'm like, ooh, that sounds like a big number. Is that a big number? That sounds like a big number. Crazy times. What do you think is going to happen? Crazy times, no doubt about it. It's crazy times, especially if you own properties in New York City. They're struggling at the moment. Mark, I believe anyone that's successful in business and real estate has to have a high level of self-discipline. How have you gained such a high level of self-discipline? For me, I think it's always come as a byproduct of something I really wanted, or something that I found really, really valuable. So I can't really claim to be a super disciplined individual. I think when I find something I love or I want, it motivates action, and that action is about as big as my desire for the thing itself. So I think for me, it was the beginning of the real estate journey was about choosing a different lifestyle, having a different career trajectory. It's really a lot bigger than just, getting 10% on my investment every year for me. So for me, being disciplined is kind of a byproduct for something else.
Do you have a daily habit that you're disciplined about completing, every day that's helped you achieve success?
I'm not sure I do. I mean, maybe there might be something like Phoebe and I sit together almost every morning and just have coffee and talk. But that's not a discipline. I like to do it. So I don't know. You have to kind of get into it and be like, what do you mean by discipline? And is this like, are you kind of beating yourself to make it happen? Or is it something you love? It's kind of, I have lots of rhythms, but I've just stumbled across them because of passion and desire. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's awesome. And I'll tell the listener that, I ask a lot of guests about their superpower. And one thing that Mark wrote was that he listens to his wife. So I think that's very valuable advice right there. And my wife and I also sit most mornings and drink coffee and sit together. And that's a great time for us to catch up and talk about what's happening, and so I can relate to that. Mark, what's the way you've recently improved your business that we could also apply to our business?
Yeah. So, the growth we've had, scaling it so aggressively, it's like learning to work with other people, learning to bring other people on and use other people in the skills that they have and the desires that they have for their own lives. So, working with contractors who have a desire to improve their skills or improve their situation. Well, we can work with them because we need work done and they want to go ahead and do work, and social media people, or we just started working with an awesome lady who's helping us with social media. So for us, it's about engaging with other people and seeing ways to partner so that our business can grow and theirs can too.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Ooh, number one thing. Man, I tell you, you got these questions that are like, they're so, let's say luck. Not luck. Maybe perseverance. Just keeping on going, finding a problem, committing to the problem, and then finding out how to solve it after I've gotten to a position where I literally have to solve this problem because I now own this problem. So buying properties that need work, I now own this property. If I can't find out a way to do the work, my property's horrible. So committing to a problem. Hey, how about that? Persistence and committing to issues to solve them. And
Phoebe's help, right?
Yes.
How do you like to give back?
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, we like the way we structure our business, we like to try and have that be like in the business, like the thing itself is set up to be a blessing to anyone who's involved. So like working with contractors who want to gain skills, or like if we're looking for new professionals to work with, we won't be necessarily looking for power players to kind of lift us up, but we might be looking for people who like have a vision for something that kind of ties in. There's like a meeting point. So we try and infuse every area of our business with that, so that like I know there's like the idea of corporations where, like the evil big corporation, and then they try and massage their egos by having philanthropy on the side to try and like make it be good. Well, I'd love a business that was good, like for everyone involved. So we're still working on that. Like it involves listening to people and talking to people, because you have to understand if they're actually being blessed by what you do. But so we try and fuse that into our business so that our business is the thing that gives back.
I love that. Love that thought. And Mark, grateful for your time today. And it's just interesting. It's such an interesting and motivating story. How you and Phoebe, really partnered to make this happen, and being willing to take risk, being willing to step out of the box, right? I mean, take the next steps that most people are not willing to take. And I just love how you talked about, you learned how not to let your fears motivate your actions. So you are willing to take the next step, maybe before you have this just amazing plan plan in place, but to step out, make it forward. I mean, make it happen. Buying a 12-story tower, I just think it's pretty impressive that you all made that happen, and growing from a single family to maybe a few duplexes to now a 109-unit building, and even completed a 1031 exchange to do it. So congratulations to you two. I look forward to seeing your success. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Yeah, so our website for our company is levareproperties.com, Levare, levareproperties.com. You can reach out that way.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.